Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and we need to talk about who is really on the Fantastic Four ship that arrives to Earth from an alternate dimension in the Thunderbolts / New Avengers post-credit scene. It has now been over a week, and Marvel Studios indicated the spoiler window lifted just like 4 days after the release, so I think we should be able to discuss this openly. And it is a bigger question than I think we initially realized. Our assumption was that the space crisis mentioned by Yelena was some kind of rift in reality, and the Fantastic Four are leaving their reality after their Earth was destroyed. I think that's too simple of an answer, and I think the real answer to this question is a bit more complicated. I'm going to break down the new visual evidence we overlooked in this scene and throughout the film. Be sure to check out nerdriot.shop, where new designs like our brand new Avengers with a Z shirt or this Fantastic Four Future Foundation shirt make great gifts, especially for Father's Day coming next month. But moms, this weekend's your weekend, and if you was a dusty dad this weekend, you don't need to reward that. Okay, I'm going to begin by saying that I do think it is the Fantastic Four on this ship, the ones played by Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Ebon Moss-Backrack in the upcoming Fantastic Four First Steps film. It's not some other variant Fantastic Four or anything like that, or like a 616 universe Fantastic Four returning to Earth, because Marvel Studios cannot afford to screw around with our expectations anymore, and they just need to get to these character groupings intermixing ahead of Doomsday. Like, there's no more time to mess around. Get there. But I also think that the Fantastic Four are not the only people on this ship, and those additional passengers are whom I'm going to spend this video making the case for. So let's remind ourselves of what happens in this post-credit scene. 14 months after the events of the Thunderbolts film, the New Avengers, aka Avengers, return to their headquarters while dealing with the lawsuit from Captain America Sam Wilson, who leads the real Avengers team. We see the New Avengers new A logo, and Bucky says that he tried to talk to Sam, but it went poorly. Bob is with the New Avengers, but he refuses to power up in a Sentry because it would mean unleashing the Void again, but he is reading self-help books and doing the dishes. I speculated that it's because the New Avengers will not turn over Bob that was the source of the conflict between Bucky and Sam. Sam and other Avengers like Thor, Doctor Strange, Bruce Banner, and Carol Danvers would probably demand that the Void be better contained. But Bucky, who fought in the last Civil War conflict, a conflict that Thor, Doctor Strange, Bruce Banner, and Carol Danvers did not fight in, mind you, Bucky would naturally protect a misunderstood super soldier who's doing his best to keep his mental health in balance, because he was that misunderstood super soldier in the last Avengers Civil War. Yelena mentions a space crisis that Sam Wilson's Avengers are not talking to them about, and their satellite brings up images of what the computer's voice calls an extra-dimensional ship entering their atmosphere. On my first viewing of the film, someone in the back of the theater gasped, "X-Men?" I suppose thinking that the ship on the screen was the X-Jet, to which I chuckled and thought, sounds like someone wasn't paying attention to the music credits, because we hear Michael Giacchino's new Fantastic Four theme, and the rocket turns so that we clearly see the number 4 of the Fantastic Four logo on the side of the ship. We got confirmation later that the scene was not only directed by the Russo brothers, it was written by Thunderbolts co-writer Joanna Kahlo, and they shot the scene only 4 weeks before the movie was released. So early 2025. That means they shot it on the Avengers Doomsday set in London, and this new Avengers HQ will be one of the sets the Russos are shooting on for that film. But 3 big questions from this scene when we look back on it now. 1, what is that space crisis that the Avengers know about, but the New Avengers don't? 2, how does the New Avengers computer know that the Fantastic Four ship is extra dimensional? And 3, why does this scene specifically say 14 months later? Like, why 14 months? All 3 of these questions, I think, are going to be important to the full manifest of this Fantastic Four ship. 2 possibilities of its passengers that have been raised, and I want to dispel. First, I do not think this ship is containing baby Franklin alone. Like, I know some of you are seeing some biblical parallels in Reed Richards' dilemma in Fantastic Four First Steps. If he truly is facing the difficult choice of giving up his son or giving up his whole world, one could imagine a baby Moses situation where they stick the baby on a rocket and send him to another universe. But I doubt Marvel Studios is going to do that. 1, because would you really put your baby on a rocket to another universe having no idea where you're sending him? And 2, that is essentially the origin story of Superman as baby Kal-El from the doomed planet of Krypton. And James Gunn's Superman is going to be coming out 2 weeks before Fantastic Four First Steps in July 2025. And I just don't think Marvel Studios is going to want their marquee film, Fantastic Four First Steps, to come off like they're ripping off one of the best known superhero origin stories. So I think baby Franklin may be on this rocket, but I think his parents and his uncles will be there with him. Secondly, I do not think the ship is containing just Herbie by himself. I think after they've played the Fantastic Four theme music in the scene, it would feel like too much of a bait and switch if the four are not on this ship and just their robot is there waving at us. Again, I think Herbie and Franklin could be with them, but on the ship must be Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben. By the way, Empire Magazine confirmed that Herbie was brought to life from a full animatronic puppet mixed with CG effects added atop a wooden stand-in, and is going to be voiced by the legendary Matthew Wood, sound editor and voice actor for Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. Very excited. I also cannot help but find it extremely unlikely that Marvel Studios would, in this Thunderbolts post-credit scene, even if it's setting up Avengers Doomsday, spoil the ending of Fantastic Four First Steps. If the Earth of that alternate universe does get destroyed, I just don't think we are now seeing the Fantastic Four escaping that destruction right in this moment and immediately traveling to the 616 Earth. I think that Marvel Studios knows that we would have seen the recent Fantastic Four trailer, including the shot of the Fantastic Four ship facing an exploding planet, and they probably knew that some of us would jump to this conclusion. But I think something more must be going on here. And the smoking gun clue is in the spacecraft design. In the Fantastic Four trailer, the ship that faces the exploding planet has 3 tail fins. The extra-dimensional ship that we see in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene clearly has 4. It's a different ship. Actually, I think by having this ship roll, in addition to revealing the 4 logo, it was also their way of showing the full body of the ship so that the more observant among us would know that this is not the same Fantastic Four ship as that shot in the trailer. So the simple answer is that this is just a larger ship with more hardware that allows the passengers to cross dimensions. At the very least, it confirms that that shot in the trailer does not immediately lead to this post-credit scene. So circling back to the questions I brought up. Space crisis, how does the computer know this ship is extra dimensional, and why 14 months? Well, the space crisis, I think we can all agree, probably refers to incursions, rifts opening to other Earths and other universes that are in the nearby space outside the orbit of the 616 Earth. I speculated that Nick Fury on the Saber space station has been observing these rifts since the events of the Marvels, when Dar-Ben used the quantum bands to open one of these rifts, a rift that took Monica Rambeau to the X-Men universe of Earth 1005. I think Nick Fury is keeping the details of that space crisis for the real Avengers that he supports, like his buddy Carol Danvers and leader of this Avengers Sam Wilson. And now, in addition to a rift opening to the X-Men Earth, I think there is another rift opening to the Fantastic Four Earth, a triple nexus point, kind of a 3-way multiversal bridge. Today's video is sponsored by Blue Chew. Spring is here. Everybody's walking around the neighborhood flaccid as a wet noodle and wondering what mail order solutions exist to help us regain our youthful vigor in the bedroom. Well, maybe not everybody, but for those who are, there's Blue Chew. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. It's super easy too. Just sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night. That way you can plan ahead or be ready for whenever an opportunity arises. And if you're skeptical or don't think you need it, try it free for a month and see. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use our promo code Rockstars. Just pay $5 in shipping. That's promo code Rockstars. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's video. So how does Yelena's computer recognize this ship as extra dimensional? Well, it depends on what technology the new Avengers HQ is running on. Thou bought Avengers Tower, which also apparently came with some stuff that Happy Hogan failed to transfer from Avengers Tower to Avengers Compound in upstate New York that we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming. When Deadpool visited Happy Hogan in March 2018, we saw that Happy had even more memorabilia in that office, but what he left behind included Loki's scepter, some Chitauri guns, and Chitauri handcuffs. And remember, since the DODC confiscated nearly all of Stark Industries' drones in Spider-Man No Way Home, and we saw the DODC using those drones in She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel, I'm willing to bet that Val, as a director of the CIA and buddies with the Secretary of Defense who showed up to support her during her impeachment trial, she probably has access to and control over a lot of that Stark tech that the government now possesses, including Tony Stark's Edith technology, and that includes a satellite network. And I think these Avengers now have access to whatever Stark hardware and satellite links might still be connected to Avengers Tower. So Yelena's computer knows this ship is extra dimensional because Tony Stark's software must have been able to recognize things from other dimensions. This could have been something that the Edith AI organically developed after Stark and the other Avengers returned from the time heist with variant Infinity Stones, or when Avengers Compound was destroyed by a Nebula and a Thanos from a branch timeline in the multiverse. To me, this is just another clue that Tony Stark, before he died, must have done more research into the multiverse than we realized. And I think that's part of the Russo's secret plan of recasting Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom as part of their mysterious new same task, big idea. I think Dr. Doom has connected with the 616 Tony Stark at some point in the past. Finally, there's the question of why 14 months? This has been driving me crazy because it's such a weird specific duration of time. Like, sure, it's long enough for the events of Daredevil Season 2 to wrap up before Avengers Doomsday, but I really don't think Marvel Studios cares that much about the timeline of the TV shows, and there's just a reason that they went with 14 months and not like a simple 1 year later. So to answer this question, we have to consider when the events of Thunderbolts take place. Initially, I assumed that Thunderbolts took place shortly after the events of Captain America Brave New World, a movie that was confirmed to be set in April 2027. I assume that because of the shot in Thunderbolts that shows the Washington Monument being repaired. Pretty fun continuity detail recalling Red Hulk damaging it in the final battle of Brave New World. But there's another detail in this establishing shot that we missed. The trees. We literally missed the trees for the forest. The trees in the DC area in Brave New World are pink cherry blossoms. That movie was kind of like all about that. These trees clearly set Thunderbolts in the season of autumn. You can see the autumn colors even more clearly later in the film. Thunderbolts being set in autumn actually makes more sense because it would be 6 or so months after Captain America Brave New World, which is a healthy amount of time to have passed. Like, I doubt Congress in this movie would rush to impeach the CIA director right after a presidential succession crisis. They would wait until the fall session. And there was just something about the way Val mocked Bucky for lasting less than half a term.
Congressman Barnes, wow. You know, I never really thought you'd have a promising political career, but less than half a term. Yikes.
Congressional terms are 2 years, so she's saying less than 1 year, but her wording made it sound like Bucky was just shy of 1 year into his term, as opposed to less than 6 months into his term. Bucky won his election in November 2026 when Thaddeus Ross won, and Bucky would have been sworn in January 2027. So all of this context makes me think that Thunderbolts is actually set in October to November 2027, 6 months after Captain America Brave New World. And you know, it wouldn't surprise me that much if the scaffolding was still on the Washington Monument for that long. It is like a very old national monument, and they probably take a long time to make sure it's being repaired properly. And then 14 months after that would place the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts and the events of Avengers Doomsday in January 2029. Now, there's been some reporting that Doomsday could be set in 2028 based on this 14-month number, but I think the people saying that started counting too close to Brave New World and they missed those trees. So I think it's actually going to be 2029. Now, why is 2029 important? Well, 2029 is the established year that the X-Men universe, Earth 10005, sees the death of its anchor being, Wolverine. Like the events of Deadpool and Wolverine that established the anchor being and established the TVA as being part of all this, stayed true to this number. I've explained in other videos how we're likely to pick up with the X-Men of that universe when that OG cast returns in Avengers Doomsday sometime in the years between 2024 and 2029 of that timeline, after the events of the Days of Future Past epilogue, which is set in 2024, and the events of Wolverine's death in the Logan film, which was set in 2029. While the Fantastic Four universe is on its own timeline with first steps set around the year 1965 in that universe, I think the X-Men universe is more parallel to the 616 Marvel universe. We know that because in Deadpool and Wolverine, Wade Wilson travels laterally from 10005 to 616 when he's chatting with Happy Hogan. I think those universes are mostly concurrent. So piecing all of this together, the reason Marvel Studios is okay showing the Fantastic Four arriving to the 616 Earth and the Thunderbolts post-credit scene before we know how Fantastic Four First Steps ends is that the surprise is that the Fantastic Four are not leaving behind an Earth that was destroyed by Galactus. Like, they're leaving willingly, volunteering to help with the multiversal crisis after they've thwarted Galactus in some other way, like maybe by using the ultimate nullifier to scare him off. And now, after that film, they will turn their sights to addressing a bigger threat posed by Dr. Doom upon the multiverse. And their first stop through that rift is not to the 616 Earth, but to another adjacent universe and even more danger in the months before Logan's death in 2029, the X-Men universe. I believe the Fantastic Four first go to the X-Men Earth, and now when they get to the 616 Earth, their ship is containing the Fantastic Four and as many X-Men they could save. The ones we know will be in Doomsday, maybe more. Reed Richards is using the ship as a life raft, and they're headed to the 616 Earth to meet these heroes. Nightcrawler actor Alan Cumming confirmed this week that Kurt Wagner will fight with Reed Richards at some point in the film of Doomsday, saying, quote, "I'm sort of learning these fights," and I'm like, what? who am I fighting with? And they're like, you're hitting Pedro Pascal against the head. So when the Fantastic Four first get to the X-Men universe, it's gonna be a wild fight as these two sides get to know each other. So when I mockingly laugh at the overexcited fan in my Thunderbolt screening who thought this ship was the X-Men, I might have judged too soon. I think the best way Doomsday delivers on this tease is for these ship stores to open showing the Fantastic Four and Herbie and Franklin, and then for them to be followed by Beast, Professor X, Magneto, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and Mystique. Now, I assume we're gonna get part of this answer in a few months with Fantastic Four First Steps, but I don't think we're gonna get the full answer for another year, so we'll see. Comment down below with your thoughts on this theory, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Smokey the Bear, who supports us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss, subscribe to all 4 channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.